Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly through the empty corridors of the USS Defiance. His footsteps echoed in the silence. The ship had been floating in space for 15 years, forgotten by everyone except the few people who still believed in it. Dust covered the control panels and the lights were dim. Most people called it a failed experiment, a waste of money and time. Jake stopped at a viewport and looked out at Earth below. The blue planet looked peaceful from here, but he knew that would change soon. Very soon. The emergency message had come in just 2 hours ago. The Valdarian Empire was coming with the biggest fleet anyone had ever seen. 3,000 warships were heading straight for Earth, and they would arrive in less than 6 hours. Commander Lisa Barnes appeared beside him. She had been taking care of the ship all these years, even when everyone told her to stop. Her hands were dirty from engine work and she looked tired, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "The engines are ready, Jake," she said. "I've been keeping them running all this time." "I knew this day would come," Jake shook his head. "The Defense Council thinks we're crazy. They said this ship is too dangerous to fly. The last test nearly killed the entire crew." "That was 15 years ago," Lisa replied. "I've fixed the problems. The ship is better now. Much better." Jake looked around the bridge. It was not pretty like the new ships. Everything looked rough and simple. The walls were thick metal instead of smooth plastic. The controls were big buttons and switches instead of fancy touchscreens. Other alien races laughed at human ships because they looked so basic. But Lisa had always said that basic could be better than fancy. Admiral Greg Phillips appeared on the communication screen. He looked old and worried. Behind him, Jake could see people running around in panic. The Earth Defense Headquarters was in chaos. "Morrison," the Admiral said, "I know what you're thinking, but we have no choice. Every other ship we have is already fighting the Valdarians at the outer colonies. They're all losing. Earth has nothing left to defend it except old patrol boats and cargo ships. And one forgotten prototype," Jake said. "Yes, one forgotten prototype that everyone says will explode if we turn it on." Lisa stepped forward. "Admiral, the ship won't explode. I've spent 15 years making it perfect. The Defiance is ready to fight." Admiral Phillips was quiet for a moment. "The Valdarians have defeated every human fleet they've faced. Their ships are faster, stronger, and have better weapons. Their Grand Armada has never lost a battle. What makes you think one old prototype can stop them?" "Because we built it different," Lisa said. "Every other human ship tries to copy alien technology. We made this ship the human way. Pure human engineering." Jake remembered the original design meetings. The Defiance had been built using human ideas that other species thought were stupid. While alien ships used energy shields, the Defiance had thick armor that could absorb and redirect energy. While alien ships used smooth, efficient engines, the Defiance had a chaotic fusion plasma system that created more power than should be possible. The ship's weapons were also different. Instead of trying to copy alien energy weapons, human engineers had improved old projectile weapons. Railguns that could fire metal slugs at incredible speeds. Missiles that used human navigation systems instead of alien computers. Everything on the ship was designed the way humans thought, not the way aliens thought. "The crew?" Admiral Phillips asked. "We have volunteers," Jake said. He looked around the bridge. Slowly, people were coming back to their stations. Pete Johnson at communications, Amy Foster at navigation, Ryan Murphy at weapons, Dr. Claire Adams in the medical bay. These were the same people who had worked on the ship years ago. They had never stopped believing in it. "Most of them are retired or discharged," Jake continued. "The military said they were too old or too difficult to work with. But they know this ship better than anyone." Lisa began starting up the ship's systems. Lights came on across the bridge. The displays showed the ship's status. Everything was green. After 15 years of careful maintenance, the USS Defiance was ready to fly. "Admiral," Jake said, "we know this is probably a one-way trip, but Earth needs defending and this is the only ship available." Admiral Phillips nodded slowly. "You have authorization to launch. God help us all." The communication screen went dark. Jake sat down in the captain's chair. It felt familiar, like putting on an old coat. Around him, his crew prepared for launch. They worked quietly and efficiently. These people had been called failures and outcasts by the regular military, but they knew their jobs. "Lisa, how are the engines?" Jake asked. "Running smooth," she replied from the engine room. "The fusion plasma core is stable. All systems are responding better than expected. Pete, any word from the Valdarians?" "They're still 6 hours out. Pete Johnson reported. But I'm picking up advanced scouts entering the solar system. 5 ships moving fast. Jake looked at the tactical display. 5 enemy ships were approaching Earth. They were small and fast, probably gathering information about Earth's defenses. They would report back that Earth was almost defenseless, just some old patrol boats and one strange-looking prototype. Amy, set course for the advanced scouts, Jake ordered. Course set, Captain, Amy Foster replied. All stations, prepare for combat. This is what we trained for. The USS Defiance began to move. Its engines created a strange blue glow that was different from normal ship engines. The ship accelerated smoothly toward the approaching enemy scouts. From the outside, it looked like an old, ugly ship going to certain death. But inside the ship, Jake Morrison and his crew were calm. They had built this ship with their own hands. They knew every bolt and wire. They had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. The rest of the galaxy thought human technology was primitive and weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The forgotten prototype was going to war, and nothing would ever be the same. Supreme Commander Zektor stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with amusement. The advanced scouts had found exactly what he expected, a nearly defenseless planet with only one ship approaching them. The ship looked crude and primitive, nothing like the elegant vessels of the Valdarian Empire. Commander, his tactical officer reported, the human vessel appears to be some kind of prototype. Our intelligence files show it was built 15 years ago and declared a failure. It has been inactive until today. Zektor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. So the humans are so desperate they are using their old failures to defend their homeworld. How pathetic. The Valdarian ships were beautiful works of art. Each one was covered in smooth silver metal that reflected light like mirrors. Their hulls were perfectly curved and streamlined. Energy shields surrounded each ship in a gentle blue glow. The Valdarians had conquered hundreds of worlds with these magnificent vessels. What do we know about human technology? Zektor asked. Primitive, Commander. They still use projectile weapons and chemical explosives. Their ships are slow and ugly. They have no understanding of proper engineering or battlefield tactics. Zektor nodded. Every species the Empire had conquered had tried to copy Valdarian technology after seeing how superior it was. But humans seemed too stupid to learn. They kept building ugly ships with thick metal walls and simple weapons. It was almost insulting that he had to bring the entire Grand Armada to defeat such a backward species. On the USS Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison studied the approaching enemy scouts. 5 ships moving in a perfect formation. They were fast and graceful, but they were following a predictable pattern. The Valdarians always fought the same way because their way always worked. Lisa, how are our systems? Jake asked over the communication system. Better than I hoped, Lisa Barnes replied from the engine room. The adaptive armor is responding to the enemy energy signatures. It's like the ship knows what's coming. Jake smiled. The adaptive armor had been his idea 15 years ago. Instead of trying to block enemy weapons, the armor would absorb the energy and feed it back into the ship's systems. Every other admiral had said it was impossible. Lisa had proven them wrong. Pete, what are the Valdarians saying to each other? Pete Johnson looked up from his communication station. They're not even trying to hide their signals, Captain. They're broadcasting their attack plans in the clear. They think we can't understand their language. Can we? Lisa has been studying their communication protocols for 15 years. We can understand everything they're saying. Jake shook his head in amazement. The enemy was so confident that they weren't even being careful. They thought humans were too primitive to break their codes. They were about to learn that human stubbornness could accomplish impossible things. Amy, take us in. Use pattern Delta 7. Amy Foster's hands moved over her controls. Pattern Delta 7, aye, Captain. The USS Defiance began to move in an erratic pattern that looked random and chaotic. The ship would suddenly turn left, then right, then speed up, then slow down. To the Valdarians, it looked like the human pilot had no idea what she was doing. But Amy knew exactly what she was doing. Pattern Delta 7 was based on human jazz music. It had rhythm and structure, but it was unpredictable. Alien computers couldn't calculate where the ship would be next because there was no mathematical formula. It was pure human creativity turned into a flying pattern. Valdarian ships are having trouble locking weapons, Ryan Murphy reported from the tactical station. Their targeting computers keep losing us. Good, Ryan, prepare our weapons. Load the railguns with depleted uranium slugs. Railguns loaded and ready, Captain. The Valdarian scout ships began firing at the Defiance. Bright blue energy beams shot across space, but they kept missing. Every time their computers calculated where the human ship would be, it was somewhere else instead. Incoming fire, Amy called out. Let them hit us, Jake ordered. The crew looked surprised, but they trusted their captain. A Valdarian energy beam struck the Defiance directly. Instead of destroying the ship, the beam seemed to disappear into the hull. The ship's lights grew brighter. Armor absorbed 98% of the energy, Lisa reported excitedly. Power levels are increasing across all systems. Zektor stared at his tactical display in confusion. His ships had hit the human vessel directly, but it was still there. In fact, it seemed to be moving faster than before. Fire again, he ordered. More energy beams struck the USS Defiance. Each hit made the ship stronger and faster. The Valdarian weapons were actually feeding power to their enemy. This was impossible according to everything they knew about physics and engineering. Commander, the tactical officer said nervously, our weapons are not having any effect. The human ship appears to be absorbing our energy attacks. That's impossible. No known technology can do that, yes, sir. But the human ship is doing it. Jake Morrison smiled as he watched the enemy ships continue their useless attacks. Ryan, return fire. Show them what human weapons can do. The USS Defiance fired its railguns. Instead of energy beams, the ship shot physical projectiles made of depleted uranium. The metal slugs traveled at a significant percentage of light speed, moving faster than anything the Valdarians had ever seen. The projectiles punched through the Valdarian energy shields like they weren't even there. Energy shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not physical objects moving at incredible speeds. The beautiful silver hull of the first scout ship cracked and split as the uranium slug tore through it. Impossible, Zektor whispered. Their weapons are primitive projectiles. How can they penetrate our shields? The first Valdarian scout ship exploded in a ball of fire. The other 4 ships tried to retreat, but the USS Defiance was faster now, powered by their own energy weapons. Amy Foster guided the ship through space like a dancer, always moving, always unpredictable. The railguns fired again and again. Each shot destroyed another Valdarian scout ship. Within 10 minutes, all 5 enemy vessels were destroyed, and the USS Defiance hadn't even been scratched. Jake looked at the empty space where the enemy scouts had been. Pete, send a message to Admiral Phillips. Tell him the advanced scouts have been eliminated. Message sent, Captain. Good, now let's get ready for the main event. The Grand Armada will be here soon, and they won't be as easy as the scouts. Lisa's voice came over the communication system. Jake, the ship is running better than ever. Whatever we just did, it improved all our systems. The Defiance is learning, Jake nodded. The ship had been designed to adapt and evolve during combat. The Valdarians had just given it the first lesson. When the Grand Armada arrived, they would face a ship that was stronger and smarter than when the battle began. The forgotten prototype had just announced to the galaxy that human engineering was not primitive. It was revolutionary. The Grand Armada of the Valdarian Empire arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a silver storm. 3,000 warships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the sun. Supreme Commander Zektor had brought the largest fleet in the galaxy's history to crush the human homeworld, once and for all. No word from the advanced scouts, his communication officer reported. They were probably destroyed, Zektor replied calmly. 5 ships against an entire planet's defenses. I expected that. What matters is that we now know Earth is defended by only 1 ship. On the main tactical display, the USS Defiance appeared as a small dot moving toward the massive fleet. To the Valdarians, it looked like a single insect challenging a swarm of eagles. The sight was so ridiculous that some of the bridge crew began laughing. Commander, should we accept their surrender when they realize how hopeless this is? The tactical officer asked. No, Zektor said coldly. Humans have been too much trouble. We will destroy their ship, then turn their planet into glass. The galaxy will remember what happens to species that resist the Empire. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the enemy fleet spread across space. He had never seen so many ships in one place. Each Valdarian vessel was larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. By every logical calculation, the Defiance should have turned around and run away. But Jake Morrison had stopped believing in logical calculations a long time ago. Lisa, status report, he called to the engine room. All systems are running better than perfect, Lisa Barnes replied. The encounters with the scout ships improved our adaptive systems. The ship is learning faster than I thought possible. Pete, what are the Valdarians saying? Pete Johnson listened to the enemy communications. They're discussing formations and attack patterns. They plan to surround us and destroy us with concentrated fire from all sides. Classic Valdarian tactics, Jake said. Always the same approach because it always works. Amy, take us straight at them. Amy Foster looked surprised. Straight at them, Captain. All 3,000 ships? Right down the middle. Use pattern Jazz Charlie. Amy's hands moved over her controls. Pattern Jazz Charlie was even more chaotic than the patterns they had used against the scouts. The ship began to move in wild, unpredictable curves that looked like complete madness. To the Valdarians, it appeared that the human pilot had lost her mind from fear, but Amy knew exactly what she was doing. Pattern Jazz Charlie was based on human chaos theory, mixed with ancient fighter pilot techniques. The ship moved like a leaf in a hurricane, impossible to predict or target. Human pilots had developed these techniques during atmospheric combat, where unpredictability meant survival. Ryan, prepare all weapon systems, Jake ordered. Ryan Murphy's hands moved over the tactical controls. Railguns loaded with uranium slugs, plasma torpedoes armed and ready, missile tubes loaded with cluster warheads. The weapons on the USS Defiance were unlike anything else in the galaxy. While most species used pure energy weapons, humans had improved and enhanced physical projectiles. The railguns could fire metal slugs at tremendous speeds. The plasma torpedoes used human guidance systems that could think and adapt during flight. The missiles carried multiple warheads that separated and attacked different targets. The Valdarian fleet opened fire when the Defiance came within range. Thousands of energy beams crossed space, creating a web of deadly light. Any normal ship would have been vaporized instantly, but the Defiance was not a normal ship. The first energy beams to hit the ship disappeared into the adaptive armor. Instead of destroying the vessel, they fed power into its systems. The ship's engines burned brighter. The weapon systems charged faster. The shields grew stronger. Armor is absorbing all incoming energy, Lisa reported with excitement in her voice. Power levels are increasing beyond theoretical maximums. More and more Valdarian ships fired at the human vessel. Each hit made the Defiance stronger and faster. The ship began to glow with absorbed energy, becoming a bright star moving through the enemy formation. This is impossible, Zektor said, staring at his tactical display. Increase fire. All ships, maximum power. The entire Grand Armada focused its weapons on the single human ship. The amount of energy being directed at the Defiance was enough to destroy a small moon. But instead of being destroyed, the ship began moving even faster, powered by the enemy's own weapons. Now, Ryan, Jake ordered. Return fire. The USS Defiance opened fire with all weapons. The railguns fired uranium slugs that moved like bullets of light. Each slug punched through Valdarian shields and hulls as if they were made of paper. The beautiful silver ships began to crack and explode. The plasma torpedoes launched next. Unlike Valdarian weapons that flew in straight lines, the human torpedoes moved in curving, unpredictable paths. They used artificial intelligence based on human creativity, rather than alien logic. The torpedoes found weaknesses in enemy formations and attacked from unexpected angles. The missiles came last, separating into multiple warheads that spread across the enemy fleet. Each warhead targeted a different ship, creating explosions throughout the Valdarian formation. The humans had learned that it was better to damage many enemies than to destroy a few. Impossible, Zektor whispered as he watched his ships being destroyed.
How can primitive projectile weapons defeat our energy shields?
His tactical officer was studying the sensor readings. Commander, their projectiles are moving at speeds we thought impossible. Our shields are designed to stop energy, not physical objects traveling at such velocities. And their guidance systems? Unknown technology, sir. Our electronic countermeasures have no effect. The weapons seem to be thinking for themselves. Jake Morrison watched the battle from his command chair, directing his ship like a conductor leading an orchestra. The Defiance moved through the enemy formation like a predator among prey, its weapons creating destruction wherever it went. Amy, take us through the command section, Jake ordered. Aye, Captain. The USS Defiance dove into the heart of the Valdarian fleet where the largest ships were positioned. These were the command vessels that controlled the entire Armada. The ship's adaptive armor absorbed more and more energy as thousands of weapons fired at it. Dr. Adams, crew status, Jake called to the medical bay. Some stress from the gravitational effects, but everyone is functional, Dr. Claire Adams reported. The fusion plasma drive is affecting our biology, but it seems to be improving our reaction times. Jake nodded. The ship's experimental systems were having unexpected effects on the human crew. They were thinking faster, moving quicker, and working together better than ever before. It was as if the ship and crew were becoming one organism. The railguns fired again, targeting the largest Valdarian command ship. The uranium slugs tore through the massive vessel's hull, causing a chain reaction of explosions. The ship that had commanded dozens of conquered worlds broke apart and died in space. Commander Zektor's flagship is destroyed, Pete reported. Jake smiled grimly. Good. That should disrupt their command structure. Continue the attack. The USS Defiance continued its devastating assault on the Grand Armada. Ship after ship fell to human weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate Valdarian defenses. The enemy formation began to break apart as panic spread through their ranks. The forgotten prototype was winning a battle that should have been impossible to win. The Grand Armada was in chaos. What had started as a simple conquest had become a nightmare. Ships that had never known defeat were exploding one after another. The single human vessel moved through their formation like death itself, leaving destruction in its wake. Sub-Commander Veltar had taken control after Zektor's death. He stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Nearly 400 Valdarian ships had been destroyed, and the human vessel showed no signs of slowing down. If anything, it seemed to be getting stronger with each passing minute. All remaining ships implement encirclement pattern Omega, Veltar ordered. Surround the human vessel from all directions. Concentrate all fire on a single point. The surviving Valdarian ships moved to surround the USS Defiance. It was their most powerful formation, designed to trap enemies with no escape route. Over 2,000 ships formed a sphere around the human vessel. Their weapons pointed inward. Now they have nowhere to run, Veltar said with satisfaction. On the bridge of the USS Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison watched the enemy ships surround them. Any other captain would have felt fear at being trapped by such overwhelming numbers. But Jake felt something else, opportunity. They just made their biggest mistake, he told his crew. By surrounding us, they've put all their ships in range of our weapons. Captain, Amy Foster said from the navigation station, we're completely surrounded. There's no way out. Who said anything about going out? Jake replied with a grin. Lisa, how are our systems? Running at 300% of rated capacity. Lisa Barnes reported from the engine room. The fusion plasma core is generating power levels I didn't think were possible. The ship is feeding on the enemy energy weapons like a hungry animal. Pete, what are they saying now? Pete Johnson listened to the Valdarian communications. They're coordinating for a simultaneous attack from all ships. They plan to hit us with everything at once. Ryan, prepare the surprise Lisa has been working on. Ryan Murphy looked confused. Surprise, Captain? The electromagnetic pulse system. Lisa's voice came over the communication system. I've been modifying our fusion plasma core. We can create a massive electromagnetic pulse that will disable every electronic system within a large radius. Will it work? Jake asked. In theory, yes, but we'll have to overload the core beyond safe limits. There's a chance the ship could be destroyed. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew looked back at him with calm determination. These people had followed him into certain death because they believed in their ship and their mission. They weren't going to stop believing now. Do it, Jake ordered. The Valdarian fleet fired all weapons at once. Thousands of energy beams converged on the USS Defiance from every direction. The amount of power being directed at the human ship was beyond imagination. It should have vaporized the vessel instantly. Instead, the Defiance began to glow like a small sun. The adaptive armor absorbed every bit of energy and fed it into the ship's systems. The fusion plasma core roared with power that threatened to tear the ship apart. Warning alarms sounded throughout the vessel. Core temperature rising beyond red line, Lisa reported. Her voice strained. Hull stress approaching critical levels. Hold together, Jake whispered to his ship. Just a little longer. Dr. Claire Adams worked frantically in the medical bay as the gravitational effects from the overloaded core began affecting the crew. Several people had collapsed, but they continued working at their stations. The human body was being pushed beyond its limits, but human determination kept them functional. Electromagnetic pulse charging, Lisa announced. 60%, 70%, 80%. The USS Defiance was shaking itself apart. Metal plates groaned under stress. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits. The ship was a crude, ugly prototype held together by human stubbornness and the will to survive. 90%. Lisa called out. 95%. The Valdarian ships continued firing, unaware that their own weapons were powering the device that would destroy them. Their sensors couldn't detect what the humans were doing because they had never seen technology like this before. 100%, Lisa announced. Electromagnetic pulse ready to fire. All crew brace for impact, Jake ordered. Lisa, fire the pulse. The USS Defiance released all the energy it had absorbed at once. The electromagnetic pulse spread out from the ship like an invisible wave of destruction. It moved at the speed of light, washing over the Valdarian fleet in seconds. Every Valdarian ship lost power simultaneously. Their beautiful energy shields collapsed. Their weapons stopped firing. Their engines went silent. The elegant vessels that had conquered hundreds of worlds became dark, lifeless hulks drifting in space. The Grand Armada, the pride of the Valdarian Empire, was completely disabled. Pulse successful, Lisa reported weakly. All enemy ships are dead in space. Jake looked at the tactical display. Over 2,000 enemy vessels floated helplessly around them. Not destroyed, but completely powerless. It was the most complete victory in human military history. Damage report, Jake called. Fusion plasma core is stabilizing, Lisa said. Hull integrity is holding. We're bruised but not broken. Communications are working, Pete reported. Sensors are coming back online. Navigation systems are functional, Amy added. Weapons are ready if needed, Ryan confirmed. Dr. Adams appeared on the bridge, looking exhausted but proud. The crew is battered but alive. The gravitational effects actually seem to help us in some ways. Faster reflexes, better coordination. I can't explain it medically, Jake nodded. The ship's experimental systems had effects that went beyond simple technology. The fusion plasma drive created fields that enhanced human performance in ways that science couldn't yet understand. Pete, send a message to Earth Defense, Jake ordered. Tell them the Grand Armada has been neutralized. Message sent. Captain? Good. Now scan for any ships that might still be functional. They found 12 Valdarian vessels that had been far enough away to avoid the full effect of the electromagnetic pulse. These ships were already fleeing the solar system, carrying news of the impossible defeat back to the Empire. Should we pursue them? Amy asked. No, Jake said. Let them go. Let them tell the Empire what happened here. Let them spread the word that humanity is not as weak as they thought. Jake looked out at the disabled enemy fleet. The ships that had come to destroy Earth were now floating helplessly in space. Soon, human recovery teams would arrive to study the alien technology and rescue any survivors. The USS Defiance, the forgotten prototype that everyone had called a failure, had just saved humanity from extinction. The ship and its crew had proven that human engineering was not primitive or backward. It was different, and that difference had made all the difference. The battle was won, but Jake knew the war was far from over. The Valdarian Empire would not forget this defeat. They would return with new ships and new tactics. But next time humanity would be ready. The prototype had shown the way forward. Human ingenuity had triumphed over alien superiority, and the galaxy would never be the same. The silence after the battle was deafening. For the first time in hours, no weapons were firing. No ships were exploding. The USS Defiance floated quietly among the wreckage of the greatest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Around them, over 2,000 disabled Valdarian warships drifted helplessly through space. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, still unable to believe what they had accomplished. A single prototype ship with a crew of outcasts had defeated an armada that had never known defeat. It should have been impossible, but here they were, alive and victorious. Captain, Pete Johnson called from his communication station. We're receiving transmissions from Earth. Admiral Phillips is requesting immediate contact. Put him on screen, Jake ordered. Admiral Phillips appeared on the main display. Behind him, the Earth Defense Headquarters was in chaos, but it was a different kind of chaos now. People were cheering and crying with relief. The impossible had happened. Morrison, the Admiral said, his voice shaking with emotion. What's your status? Mission accomplished, Admiral, Jake replied simply. The Grand Armada has been neutralized. All enemy ships are disabled. All of them? Jake, there were 3,000 ships. 2,688 to be exact, Ryan Murphy reported from his tactical station, all disabled except for 12 that fled the system. Admiral Phillips stared at them in amazement. How did you do it? Human engineering, sir, Lisa Barnes said as she appeared on the bridge. Her face was covered with sweat and dirt, but she was smiling. The ship performed exactly as designed. Better than designed. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew looked exhausted but proud. They had pushed themselves and their ship beyond all limits and had achieved the impossible. Dr. Claire Adams was checking each crew member for injuries. Amy Foster was running diagnostics on the navigation systems. Pete Johnson was monitoring communications from the disabled enemy fleet. Ryan Murphy was keeping watch for any threats. These people had been called failures and outcasts by the regular military. Too old, too difficult, too unconventional, but they had just saved humanity from extinction. Admiral, Jake said, we need recovery ships out here as soon as possible. There are thousands of Valdarian survivors in those disabled ships. They'll need rescue and medical attention. Already on the way, Admiral Phillips replied. The entire remaining fleet is heading to your position. We need to secure those ships and learn everything we can about their technology. Understood, sir. But Admiral, there's something else you need to know. What is it? Jake paused, choosing his words carefully. The ship has changed during the battle. The adaptive systems have evolved beyond our original design. The USS Defiance is not the same vessel that left Earth this morning. Lisa nodded in agreement. The fusion plasma core has stabilized at power levels that should be impossible. The adaptive armor has learned to recognize and counter dozens of different weapon types. The ship has become something new. What are you saying? Admiral Phillips asked. We're saying that human technology is capable of things we never imagined, Jake replied. The Valdarians came here thinking we were primitive and weak. They learned that being different doesn't mean being inferior. Over the next several hours, Earth's recovery fleet arrived at the battle site. Hundreds of ships spread out across the debris field, rescuing Valdarian survivors and securing the disabled vessels. It was the largest salvage operation in human history. Jake stood in the observation deck of the USS Defiance, watching the recovery efforts. Lisa Barnes joined him, carrying a data tablet with analysis reports. The preliminary studies are amazing, she said. The Valdarian ships are advanced, but they're also limited. Everything is designed for efficiency and elegance. There's no redundancy, no adaptability. What do you mean? Jake asked. Their systems are perfect for normal operations, but they can't handle unexpected situations. When our electromagnetic pulse disabled their main computers, nothing else could take over. Our ship has dozens of backup systems and manual controls. Jake nodded. Human engineering assumes things will go wrong. Exactly. We build ships expecting battle damage, system failures, and crew injuries. The Valdarians build ships expecting everything to work perfectly all the time. That's why they've never lost before, Jake realized. Every species they've conquered has tried to match their perfection. We're the first species crazy enough to embrace chaos and unpredictability. Dr. Claire Adams approached them with her medical report. Jake, I've been studying the crew's condition during the battle. The fusion plasma drive created gravitational fields that affected our nervous systems. Is that bad? Jake asked with concern. Actually, it seems to be beneficial. Reaction times improved by 30%. Coordination between crew members increased dramatically. It's like the ship was helping us work together better. The ship was designed to bond with its crew, Lisa said. We wanted a vessel that would respond to human intuition and creativity. Maybe we succeeded better than we knew. Pete Johnson's voice came over the communication system. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Earth. The President wants to speak with you. Jake returned to the bridge and accepted the communication. The President of Earth appeared on the main screen looking tired but grateful. Captain Morrison, the President said, on behalf of all humanity, I want to thank you and your crew. You've saved our species from extinction. We were just doing our job, Madam President, Jake replied. Your job was supposed to be a suicide mission. Instead, you've won the greatest victory in human history. The Valdarian Empire has never suffered a defeat like this. Their reputation for invincibility is broken. What happens now? Jake asked. Now we prepare for their return, the President said firmly. Because they will return. The Empire cannot allow this defeat to go unanswered. But next time we'll be ready. The President was right. In the days that followed, intelligence reports confirmed that the surviving Valdarian ships had reached Empire space. The news of the Grand Armada's defeat had shocked the alien government. For the first time in centuries, the Empire faced an enemy that could fight back effectively. But the defeat had also given humanity something precious. Time. Time to study captured Valdarian technology. Time to build new ships based on the lessons learned from the USS Defiance. Time to prepare for the next war. Jake stood on the bridge of his ship as they approached Earth's orbital shipyards. Below them, the planet looked peaceful and beautiful. Millions of people were alive because of what they had accomplished. Children would grow up free because a forgotten prototype had proven that human ingenuity could triumph over impossible odds. "Captain," Amy Foster said from her station, "we're receiving docking instructions from Shipyard 7. Take us in." "Amy," Jake ordered. As the USS Defiance approached its berth, Jake could see other ships under construction. New vessels based on the prototype's design principles. Ugly, brutal-looking ships built for war and survival. Ships that embraced chaos and unpredictability as strengths rather than weaknesses. The galaxy had laughed at human technology for being primitive and crude, but primitive tools in the hands of a species that refused to give up had proven more powerful than the most advanced weapons of a complacent empire. The USS Defiance had been called a failure, a waste of resources, a dangerous experiment. Instead, it had become the ship that saved humanity, and announced to the universe that Earth's children would not go quietly into extinction. The forgotten prototype had become a legend, and its crew had become the heroes who proved that sometimes the best way to win against superior enemies is to refuse to fight by their rules. Humanity had found its own path to the stars, and nothing would ever be the same.